There we go. Welcome to Philadelphia Flyers Hockey. It is the Flyers Canucks game day pregame show. Jason Martinez downstairs. And there they are. Look at Smitty and Bundy sitting on one camera, nice and snuggled up. How's it going, boys?
We're doing good. I have a programming note just to pass along to you first that apparently we're going on closer to 49:50 than we thought. So,
okay. So we'll join our radio audience in about 3.5 minutes.
Yep.
Can I, Bundy, I'm going to put something on the record because I know that you'll like this.
More of us.
Tonight was the best press dining room dinner since the Cup final in 2010.
Yeah.
I will believe that when I see it.
Rodney, we have station in our ears now.
It was good, man. They had a carving station, the whole thing. It must be the home opener. Horseradish,
everything. Yeah, it's great. You know, we don't get that every day anymore, right?
Yeah. We did get some kind of breaking news today.
Did we?
Well, Sean Couturier is coming back in. Well, not that he was out. He missed practice yesterday. But Morgan Frost is coming out, but he took warm-ups.
Okay.
So I imagine he did not take line rushes, but that was a precaution in case, Couturier didn't feel perfect. Then Frost could stay in, but that's kind of the deal. But we'll discuss that further when we get to our radio audience coming up in just a couple of minutes. Yeah. But it is the home opener. And before we even get to the radio audience, buddy, I got to ask you, home opener, did you prefer to open on the road as a player?
You know what, Chase? Actually, I didn't really think about it much, or it's lost my thought process on that for my playing days. But yes, I liked opening on the road. Now that I think
get out with the boys, right?
Yeah.
Away from everything.
Yeah, and then the other thing too, which is great with it, is you take the pressure off. You're not dealing with the families coming in and the parents and the grandparents. So yeah, get the games onto the road, and then you've kind of built into your season a little bit. You've already gotten started. And then you got to come home. This is probably, for a player other than a playoff game, is probably the worst game to play in terms of outside preparation, dealing with fans, tickets, all that kind of stuff. But again, it is a special night. It's a fun night. Being here in the concourse, and I've been here since 3 o'clock out at the block party, it's been unbelievable. People are excited. And again, stuff we've talked about, you can really, really feel the culture change of what, like reverberating back to what was and what worked.
Yeah.
Feels like that's got that family ambiance again. And I know people are like, well, we don't care about that. No, people do. A lot of them care. And the winning will come with it. That's where you have to have the trust in the management. But for where we're at right now, having the team that, we saw them with some of their warts exposed the other day in that game against Ottawa. Away from that. But again, we want to see a team that works, competes hard, and watch a lot of the younger guys get better. And I think that's what's really important for this year. They're going to win some good games, but opening night is certainly a very, very fun night. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, there's I'm going to put my other headset on just in case we're getting ready to go on the radio. And we're here and we're ready for the radio. Oh, looks like we're ready for the radio now. So
all right.
I'm like swapping headsets. Hold on. All right. Yeah, it's the home opener. It's Flyers. It's Canucks. Wells Fargo Center. Jason Martinez, Chris Terrian, Brian Smith as the Flyers going to open up the home portion of the schedule. 2 games into the season now. They've beaten a division opponent in the Columbus Blue Jackets. They lost to a conference opponent in the Ottawa Senators on Saturday. But tonight, and what starts a really interesting week of hockey, a 2-0 Canuck team that's beaten Edmonton twice and beaten the brakes off them in the first game, 8-1. And then we'll see those Edmonton Oilers come Thursday with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and et al. On Thursday. But tonight it's the Flyers and Canucks. And Bundy, we were just talking about on the stream show about opening night and some of the distractions that go with it. But coming back from that road trip where we saw kind of the good and the bad of the Flyers, you got to focus on the good here tonight, but you can't let the ceremonies and the pomp and circumstance tonight kind of hamper that down in any way. You got to almost just kind of deal with that and do your game and control what you can control.
Yeah, you know what? I almost want to see the Flyers play a little bit like Ottawa did. They went out on the road. They lost their first road game at Carolina, and they came back really focused on the home crowd, understanding that they needed to get a win. Can't fall behind the standings. But I think for the Flyers, I'd like to see that too. Put that last game behind them. come out with a lot of energy today. As I said, this is probably the biggest pain in the butt game for players to play because it's the first game at home, and you're getting in a lot of new nuances. There's a new locker room. Guys aren't even familiar with it. There's a lot of new things going on, and I think just with a home game, dealing with your family, trying to get the tickets all squared away and whatnot, it's just a little bit of a distraction. But they do have a busy week. They're playing two Western Conference teams that have a lot of go in them, and it sets up tonight with a team like Vancouver that really did, as you said, Jason, kind of smack Edmonton in 2 games, 8-1, and I think was it 4-3, maybe
5-3,
5-3 on the road.
Yeah.
That's tough to do, and I think when you look at that, the Flyers know that they've got some skill coming in here, and they're going to have to do a better job than they did against the Ottawa Senators on Saturday.
And one of the things with this Canuck team is they've got a full season now under Rick Tocchet. Bundy, you played with Tock. You know the kind of guy he is. He's a go, 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 and control what you can control, all the effort in the world. If you're not going to give him that, he ain't going to give you ice time. It's that simple.
Yeah, and again, it's easier to do now because you're going to find somebody else step up in the lineup. I mean, no different for the Flyers. If you're not ready to play, you're not ready to go, you're going to get benched. There's a lot of guys that are kind of all the same in this league, and a guy like Rick Tocchet, who I played with for a few years, he won't tolerate that either. So it's going to be exciting, an exciting night, no doubt, Jason. But again, the Flyers are going to have to be prepared to defend. Certainly with Vancouver having scored 13 goals in 2 games, they're feeling good coming out of the gate for them.
And their top player, Elias Pettersson's got 6 points, a goal, and 5 assists. Brian, but before we came on too on the stream show, Bundy was mentioning it. Things feel different. We're kind of going back to the way it was. The unveiling of the locker room celebrates the history of this franchise. And forges a new path. And that's really what this new era of Orange is all about. I think we feel it at all levels as well. You're up there on the concourse with people. I'm down here in the auxiliary locker room. What is the vibe up there on the concourse here on opening night? Can you put that into words for me?
I mean, there's a lot more people that are happy to see Bundy than me. I mean, I can put it to you that way.
You know what, Jason? I'll say something. I don't want to sound conceited, but guys like me are back in the building, right? Like that said something.
Point.
Like I was gone for 3 years, and I don't know if it had something to do with the last regime or whatever, but there's something special about this organization. And if you played here a long time, you worked for this team a long time, you can't forget that, and you can never let that past go. So just for me, I came over here at 3:00, hanging out with the block party. Me and Dan Hilferty were taking pictures for each other out front, just meeting and greeting people, and then just seeing what I consider a great family. Philadelphia sports is one big family, and then it starts to run down into specific teams. The Flyers people, the Flyers fans are as committed as any fan base I've ever seen. And I said that when I left, a few years ago. I said, don't ever stop being who you are. You are the beating heart of the franchise. And they are. The fans are the beating heart of this team. Ed Snyder knew it. People like myself that were here a long time, I knew it. And I appreciate what they've done. They've stuck with something. It wasn't good for a while, and we have the right people back in here now doing the right things and making sure that the vision that Ed Snyder had for 50 years. I know we have to go back to that because it is important. You have to honor the past and remember it, that never happens again, because this is a special, special place to be. And quite frankly, it makes me emotional knowing that I'm back here, even doing pregame radio and my podcast. Just to be in the building again is amazing.
Yeah, and I speak for everybody. We're so happy you're back in the mix again. You and I love chopping it up, mixing it up about hockey and everything else. And I'm thrilled that you're back and you're doing pregame with Brian and I. Now, where are you guys located, Smitty? So we can tell the people where they can come see you.
Yep, we are in the Bet Rivers main bar, which is a couple of Bet Rivers places in this building now. But we're in the main bar behind sections 106 and 107.
Okay.
So we are on the south end of the building, closest to 95. If you come in off the Broad Street side, you want to turn right to get to us. If you come in off 11th Street, you want to turn left to get to us. So that's the quick version of the directions. But yeah, we're behind 106, 107, and it's the Bet Rivers main bar, I believe. It's not the sports book. That's upstairs. This is the main one on the main concourse level.
Brian, when you and I yesterday, we had a sit down for Hockey and Hounds with Torts. And I was talking to Torts after you were in the room. We were talking about the Phillies. And he said, I got to get Bryce Harper in front of my guys. Bundy, you know what this town, you just alluded to it about the Philadelphia sports fans and the family. And you know what's going on with the Phillies. You're a bigger baseball fan, by the way, than you are a hockey fan. And I think you know more about baseball than you do hockey. And that's telling. But a guy like Harper, who loves the moment and is now on that stage in the NLCS, pounding home runs, like that's infectious for you as a player in this town when the other teams are doing that too, right?
100%. It gets me fired up. Last night in that first inning, I was jacked up watching it and seeing these home runs flying out of the park. I think I put on Twitter, I said it's batting practice in South Philly tonight. But that's the stuff that works, when you see somebody that loves playing here, loves being a part of it, And for me, even going back to you guys, I've been part of the fabric of the Flyers one way or another for 27 years. Now it's 28. Right? Yeah. I had a little bit of a couple of years off, but I'm still doing hockey with my podcast with Snow the Goalie. So really,
you get your career in Dallas too.
Yeah, right. 11. I don't want to forget that. 11 games, 2 months of hell. We'll say it's worth another book, maybe.
Are they going to have a trivia night for you in Dallas, by the way?
Yeah, it's a ceremony on when are we there? Saturday, something like that.
That's right. Yeah, they are. They're having a thing Saturday. That's right. They will not have the marketing band meeting in Dallas. But yeah, this is just a cool place. You see guys you see players like the Phillies, and they're no different in age than the guys of the Flyers. And you know what's cool? I know the Flyers moved up their game tonight for the Phillies, but I've been on a lot of the other side of that when the Flyers had a playoff game in the spring, and the Phillies couldn't get anybody to go over there because it was a cold April day when the Flyers were starting. So this is the way it works. It's the way it goes. Flyers are in a rebuild. They're going to continue getting better, but until that time, it's so great to see the fans down here in droves really on opening night with a lot going on down here. It's easy to just pack in a game like this. Say, I'm going to sit and watch the Phillies at home. That's not happened. It's a zoo down here, and I love seeing it like this.
Yeah, you want to be a part of it. And they got the international soccer match as well on the pitch at Lincoln Financial. It's called a friendly. Could we ever have a hockey game that's called a friendly? I don't think that's in the cards.
Game, I think.
Yeah, it's called the European hockey game.
The Iserlohn Roosters and the Berlin Polar Bears, right? Yeah. Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bundy, one of the things, you and I have talked about this many times, about when you were scratched early in your career. And you told me, I think at the time, that it's one of the things that saved your career.
Yeah.
Because it was lesson learned. You took it the right way. And when you're in a team situation like this with the Flyers, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot to prove. There's a lot of players are going to go through this. That if you're not playing great, there's another guy sitting there knocking on the door trying to get in. Morgan Frost appears to be scratched tonight. What would your kind of advice be to players that are going to be in this situation tonight?
Yeah, when I look back at that, Jace, it was my third year in the league, and I thought I was doing pretty well. I really did. And then you know what? Terry Murray brought me out of the lineup, and I realize now that it was to make me better, to see how I'd respond to that. And I responded how people would expect you to respond, to how a coach would want you to do. And it did. It turned my whole career around. 3 weeks later, I was playing with Eric Desjardins. So I came from second or third pair to get a chance to play with, maybe one of the best, maybe the best defenseman in the history of the Flyers. So I took it well. But again, this is a situation still where a guy like Morgan Frost is young. Torts is hard on young guys. There's no one's going to tell you differently. And until you're in a certain spot playing the way he wants you to play, you can't have a hiccup game, 2 games like that. Now, is he alone? No. You could have put Noah Cates in there. You could have put Owen Tippett in there.
Yep.
But, in the past, Morgan Frost has been the guy that has been picked on or looked at. So he doesn't have as much rope as other guys for whatever reason. And it doesn't matter. So he needs to be good. He had a lot of great games in the second half of the year last year, but he needs to have a really good start as well. That's hopefully a message. It's an awful early message to sit a guy out that's been a main player for a home opener. That's a tough one to take, but it is what it is. He's got to be better.
And all, my favorite story and it shouldn't be favorite because it went against the Flyers, but this story of Pat Maroon. Who was here a little more than 10 years ago, and I don't know what happened with the Phantoms after they left town here, but he was with them and he got sent home. He had a run-in with the coaching staff at the time, and they told him to go home. And then he turned into what's happened for him over the last decade. It's those kind of lessons, I think, sometimes that, like what you mentioned, Bundy, that reset kind of your overall compass, if you will. And like I don't see. There's a lot of guys that come through here that they weren't great here, and then they had careers somewhere else. That I don't think they maybe turn into those players if they don't have an experience of getting traded or getting sent down or something like that.
It's a good lesson in life too, because you can find out who you are as well,
right.
And how much adversity you can take. Now, listen, that doesn't mean everyone takes it well, and I took it all well in my career, but you got to be good. This is a league where you have to earn your spot to stay, because there's so many guys now that are all the same. They're just 1 through 6 in terms of the same player on a wing. A lot of them are same after you get through the first 2 lines. Where you have like mainstay players.
Interchangeable. Yeah.
Interchangeable parts, Jason. That's well said, but that's exactly what the team would be dealing with in certain situations. So that's why you got to be on your game and really prepared nightly to do a good job and be out there and do your job. But you got to come bring the heat and compete.
Yeah, they say they say it's hard to get to the NHL, but it's even harder to stay in the NHL. It's a hard enough league to break into, but when you get there, the work is not done. And I think that maybe that's the big lesson is that there's always somebody there,
right?
To take your job and take your lunch money.
And sometimes some guys lose track of that because for their entire life, right? It's from age 8, 9, whatever. The goal's been the NHL, and you keep taking a step up through every league. You go through AAA, and then you get to major, junior, maybe, and then you get drafted. That's a big milestone, and then you end up in the AHL, and then finally that day you get to the NHL. You feel like, oh wow, I made it! Finally, this journey's over. Well, it's really not. It's really just beginning.
I always say you get to the top of Everest when you play your first NHL game.
Yep.
And the rest of your career is that descent downwards, which takes as long as it does to get up sometimes.
And it's rolling.
Right. Very difficult. Yes.
Just to get back to base camp.
Yeah.
Which is already like 5,000 feet in elevation.
Right.
So, tonight, the Flyers are facing this team in Vancouver tonight that's got 44% on the power play already. It's early in the season. Flyers really struggled the other night on the PK. Bundy, killing penalties isn't necessarily about will, or skill, but it's a lot about will. What do they need to clean up in that regard? First of all, don't take that many penalties. That's the easier part said than done. But what do they got to do if they're on the PK to be more successful?
Be in the lanes and try to eliminate cross-seam passes. The other night, they got victimized by shots and plays breaking down. I think, though, with the Flyers, they have to have more of a focus on shot blocking and keeping things simple. The other thing, too, and it seems like a simple thing, when there's nothing there, you have to get pucks all the way down. And that's a part, too, of a lot of teams struggle with that, just getting pucks out, but you got to mail it down the ice so you can get a change, get the next 4 healthy guys on there.
Yeah, get it down below the goal line and put yourself in a good position. You can't half-ass that, or else you're just shortening the ice for the opposition.
Yep.
All right, stay tuned. We've got Tim Saunders and Todd Fedoruk on site. It is the home opener. It is the Flyers and the Canucks. Bundy, it's great to have you back. Smitty will join me at intermission and postgame, and you can check out Bundy and Snow the Goalie on their intermission and postgame shows as well. Stay tuned. Flyers hockey coming up next. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day, brought to you by the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.